On today's show, for the first time in 177 days, it's an Ottawa Senators game day.
We've got a full game day preview for you for the home opener up against the Florida Panthers.
We're here in our nation's capital, and they're going up against the Stanley Cup champs. All that and more on today's Locked On Sens.
This is Brady Kachuk, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
You're Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome. You are locked on to the Ottawa Senators, the only daily podcast covering the Sens. Alongside Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan in the heart of our nation's capital, Ottawa, Ontario. Today's episode's brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. That's comedy, theater, sports. Get your tickets to the home opener tonight at Gametime. You can also follow the show on social media. We're at Sens Central on Twitter, LockedOn.Senators on Instagram. You can find us free and available everywhere you get podcasts, including on YouTube. Today is Thursday, October 10th, and Pilsy, good to see you again, buddy.
It's always great to be back in the nation's capital. We're at Chateau Levitan. Different studio vibe here. We're right in the kitchen, and we're hoping the Sens are going to be in the Florida Panthers kitchen cooking up some goals for the home opener.
Oh, can't wait. It's our fourth home opener since COVID. The Senators are obviously 3-0 over that span. 3-2 win over the Leafs. 7-5 over the Boston Bruins. I look over to that studio over there, Pillsy, and all I think is, sway, man. Well, what do you know? The guy who was on the bench that game, who we were calling for, Linus Ullmark, will get the start for the Ottawa Senators, fresh off that 4-year contract extension at $8.25 million. Of course, we covered that in depth yesterday. Thank you, Steady Stevie, for the timing of that right before Pillsy started his pilgrimage. Your arms must be tired from paddling the whole way.
Yeah, I mean, luckily I had a good current and I made it here in great time, but there's always an excitement coming back to our nation's capital, Ross. I drove past the CTC. It was dark out by the time I drove past, but it was lit up perfectly, and the stage is set for the start of the 2024-2025 NHL regular season at the Canadian Tire Center.
And any good sporting event has to have a good pregame, and we're going to be dialing it in at the GLEBE Central Pub. 3 full buses are going to be heading to from the GCP to the CTC and then back afterwards. And oh man, I can't wait for the experience today. Sens fans never let me down.
No.
But the fact that it's a 7 o'clock start, look, I love a good matinee, but last year we were early. So this is going to be a great vibe. And to be the best, you got to beat the best. And going up against the Florida Panthers, we'll get into them in the third segment, but they put on an absolute clinic in game 1.
Yeah, I mean, they were up against the Boston Bruins, who had a questionable starting goaltender. So the Senators are going to step things up in the crease, something a little different than what the Florida Panthers saw on their first game.
Yeah, I think what you're looking for from the Ottawa Senators tonight is to establish home ice dominance the way that Florida did in their first game. The shots were, 8-1? 10 minutes into the game, the goals were 2-0, and Ottawa needs to jump out like that. They can't have it be like Edmonton last night, where the Jets went into their building and absolutely gave it to them 6-0, the final score in that game last night. A lot of blowouts last night, a lot of shutouts as well, a lot of goals, but then still a couple shutouts too. Montreal got one, and then the New York Rangers as well over the Pittsburgh Penguins. But for Ottawa tonight, it's about themselves, right? Like, we'll talk a bit about the matchups, but I think you're looking at the top-end players who have had disappointing ends to their last season. I'm looking at Tim Stützle in particular as a guy who I think needs to pop off in this game. Set the tone. I know at FanDuel, his over-under shots on goal, 1.5. Hammering the over on that. I think he's going to be letting it rip with that tinted visor.
And Ross, speaking of bets we're on, shout out FanDuel. We'll get to that later, but I'm always on the new dad baby bump. We got a trio of them. Brady, Claude Giroux, and Nick Jensen. So hopefully those guys can get it popping.
Nick Jensen probably paying the most.
Yeah.
Odds-wise. But we'll get to the line combos here in the second segment. Senators just about to step on the ice for their morning skate at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Pillsy, what's the one thing? I said quick start. What's the one thing you want to see in tonight's game?
I want to see Chris Neal come down to the bench, tap Ridley Gregg, Nick Cousins,
David Perron.
and David Prawn on the shoulder.
The Rat Pack.
And say, you know what I used to do? The first shift, I would go out and run a guy through the boards. That's what I want the Senators to do. You said you want them to come off with a hot start, obviously offensively, but Ross, we know the crowd at the CTC. We know the crew up in the 300s, our people.
321, 320, 319. Those are the sections right there.
They're going to get even more rowdy when we see some physicality. And if we're talking about games up against the Florida Panthers, a lot of goals happen at the over, and a lot of physicality. How many, you were looking at it today, how many total penalty minutes was there in the 4 games last season?
In the 4 games, which Ottawa lost all 4.
Yeah, I wasn't going to mention that.
243 penalty minutes.
Yeah, so this is going to be an exciting game. Whether you like physicality, goals, whatever you're into, this is an absolute I was going to call it a rivalry, Ross, but unfortunately, it's not really a rivalry.
It was a rivalry when we had the Brady's better chance the last time Ottawa beat Florida, and then since then, it's been a rivalry like a hammer and a nail.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to go down that path, but
you did.
No,
you did.
I was trying to steer off, and you kept grabbing the wheel and turning it back on that path. What I wanted to get to is there's going to be a lot of passion, a lot of emotion in this game, and if you're the Senators, you couldn't really have picked a bigger challenge to start the season off. Like, I feel like last year, especially the Philadelphia Flyers, who ended up having a pretty decent season throughout the whole season. But at the start of the year, that seemed like a bit of a cupcake matchup, and we felt pretty confident the Sens were going to steamroll them. But this time, new year, new expectation, and you can't just hope to get those easy matchups that you're going to take care of. You got to be able to punch up and beat teams above your weight class if you're going to have any chance of trying to sneak into the playoffs.
So last year aside, who has the advantage? Ottawa coming out at home in their first game, or the fact that Florida has already played a full game?
The Sens of the advantage. They're at the CTC. They have the advantage. I don't know.
Best home ice in the league. Some are saying.
Yeah, that's what everyone says.
For the home opener, it is.
The Canadian Tire Center, best home ice advantage. I don't know if the Hurricane's going to have any effect on the Florida Panthers players, but
it seems like they're here. They got to Ottawa yesterday, so they're here. They're ready to go, and they're bringing a very strong team with them. There's no two ways about this. There's no guaranteed victory today. If they lose, it's not panic mode. It's just go out, try to establish the way that the Senators want to play, which we heard is heart over hype is the slogan for the season. But I think that what really should be the slogan is look in the mirror. Don't worry about what's on the other side of it. Look in the mirror and what you can bring to the table to give your team and your role the best chance at success.
Yeah, absolutely. And like,
we've got our guy,
which is
hyping up, getting everybody fired up. And I think we're going to bring it tonight.
Okay.
We'll see. Hey, my voice tomorrow's episode will dictate how well we've done at our job.
Yeah, well, you got to keep some of that voice for our travels to Montreal on the weekend.
Oh, French is a different voice.
Oh, okay. That's good. You got another voice in the chamber.
Oui, c'est ça.
But Ross, and we'll get to it when we look at the line, so maybe this is a bit of a segue here.
Woo.
This is not last year's Florida Panthers team. They've lost a lot of talent, as a cup-winning team will do in the salary cap era. No Brandon Montour, no more Oliver Ekman-Larsson.
No Nick Cousins.
No Nick Cousins. How did I forget that? That's the biggest fall off.
Anthony Stolars is gone too, the backup goaltender. He had a great game, actually, just let in the 1 goal, but that was enough to lose last night against the Habs. And I think we're missing probably a couple up front as well.
I don't think there's that many guys.
Steven Lorenz.
Yeah.
Depth guys, but those are the guys that help you win.
Mostly what I'm focusing on is that's a new back end. And the Ottawa Senators have to find ways to find the holes in that defense core that weren't necessarily there last year. And Ross, that back end isn't going to produce as much offense as they did last year either. No Ekman-Larsson, no Brandon Montour. So
sorry, Ekman-Larsson. I saw Ekblad. Ekblad.
So
you're right. OEL.
Ekblad and Forsling are going to have to really pick up the slack there. So we'll see how that goes.
And still no word on Adam Bachvist, the 6th defenseman on the team, but first power play unit defenseman, took a shot off the face on a clearing attempt in game 1. Didn't look good. He might play, he might not. But again, if a sixth defenseman is making the difference for the other team, Ottawa's got bigger problems. Who's Ottawa sending to the ice, and how do they match up against these Florida Panthers? We'll discuss next. A reminder that we will be at the GLEBE Central Pub from 2 o'clock on. The buses leave at 5:45. If you haven't reserved, I'm sorry. We'll see you at the game because we've sold out 3. Count it, 3 buses. Can't wait.
Get another bus, Ross?
I can't wait to see.
Who's got an extra bus kicking around?
I think we've sold the city out of buses at this point. But that said, can't wait to see everyone at the game. Section 321. Already had a bunch of people in the DMs asking, "Where are you? What's this?" I'm a lost cause at Sens games. I am all over the place.
I can't even keep up with you.
I'm like the road runner. I'm just flying around. Once the cold water in the bathrooms hits my hands, all bets are off. So we'll see you at the game. If I don't answer, it's not because I'm being rude, but we'll see you at the game.
Maybe what we'll try to do, Ross, is if we know where we're going in the intermission, we'll tweet out the bat signal.
Funniest thing of all time was when we were just grabbing a bite to eat. We're like, "Oh, this looks like a table we can sit down." And people are like, "Are you doing like a meet and greet?" It looked like we were like sitting across from people. We were just trying to have a bite to eat.
Like,
but we love.
We're exhausted.
If you see us, say hi. We love getting to meet all the citizens and Sens fans. We're heading in to see all 18,500 of our best friends. And you know what I say? They're going to pack in more than that tonight. I think it's going to be over 19,000 in the building. Can't wait. And if you can't get to the GLEBE Central Pub, great to see the organization doing the red carpet event. So the Senators will enter via the red carpet, I think between 3 and 4:30. So get there early if you're one of those who likes giving the daps and maybe getting an autograph or two from the boys, or even just wishing them well as they head into battle. Game 1 of 82. How will the Sens line up? We'll get to that next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Mary J's. Ross, I have a feeling we're going to check out one of their 4 locations in the Ottawa area, but you know Mary J's is a locally owned cannabis dispensary started by 3 friends that wanted to go for their dreams. Hard work and dedication, dare I say heart over hype, Ross, allowed them to achieve their dreams.
Hemp over hype.
And with hard work,
hemp over hype.
There we go. Another one.
I was muted the first one.
Classic. We're getting used to the new mics. You can check them out in Riverside South, Orleans, Greeley, and Russell. They got the best and newest products on the market. They're adding stuff to the menu every single week to keep it fresh. And they've got the best price guarantee anywhere in town. They're going to price match whatever you are looking for. They can guarantee the same price. And Mary J's has the best customer service. They got friendly bud tenders who are there to help out.
What up, Dashy?
Go say what up to Dashy yourself at one of the 4 stores. Talk to them about the home opener and how the Sens are going to do. Give them some hot takes. Let's hear some hot takes. Check it out today, guys. Go check out their website and get yourself a loyalty card. It's Mary J's Dispensary.
Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. It's the official sports betting partner of Locked On. Over at FanDuel, you can make every moment more because our friends over at FanDuel are making sure that you're set before the game and during. I'm a big live bet guy. You see something you like, you're like, oh man, I've got the competitive edge here in this situation. I go over to FanDuel and I go check out what I can get. And I can tell you what you can get. If you go to FanDuel right now, you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets. Guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's over at FanDuel.com. We're obviously on the Sens tonight.
I got a Pilsey's parlay of the day. Pilsey's parlay of the day is back today. I'm looking at Sens money line,
of course,
obviously. The over, like I said, the Florida Panthers score a lot of goals, and you look at the goal scoring that happened last night. Goals are in right now, and I want the Sens to start off hot. I got the Sens first period puck line, which is actually plus 0.5. So as long as they're not losing by the end of the first period, that's going to hit 3 parlay. Check out FanDuel's profit boost. If you do a same game parlay with 3 or more legs, you get a 50% profit boost. So I'm getting that at plus 603, Ross.
Wow. And you can get started over at FanDuel. $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's over at FanDuel.com. Pilsy cannot wait for tonight. 7 o'clock puck drop at the CTC. The Ottawa Senators taking on the Florida Panthers. And here's how we expect the Ottawa Senators to line up in tonight's game. The top line has been together since day one of the preseason, outside of course, Claude Giroux having a couple personal days in there to welcome his third child. Tim Stützle between Brady Tkachuk and Claude Giroux. We've got Josh Norris making the start on opening night, something he did not do last year. He'll be centering Ridley Gregg and Drake Batherson. Shane Pinto also not in the lineup on opening night last year. He's in between David Perron and Michael Amadio. The fourth line, Adam Gaudette between Noah Gregor and Nick Cousins. On defense, we've got Jake Sanderson with Artem Zub, Thomas Chabot with Nick Jensen, and Tyler Clevin is with Travis Hamonic. Linus Ullmark starts in goal. Pilsy, your locked-on player to watch.
My locked-on player to watch is going to be the captain, Ross, number 7, Brady Tkachuk. We already talked about it. New baby bump, new season, new expectations. Obviously, we got to mention it, going up against the big brother to start it off.
Whoa.
They're not going to fight. Don't ask me. They're not going to fight. And I mentioned earlier I wanted Chris Neal to tap a couple guys on the shoulder. I can't believe I forgot to say Brady Tkachuk, a player who broke the hits record in a single game. Yeah, let's get Brady running guys through the boards right away.
I would love to see that. And you know what? Sean Thornton, longtime NHL enforcer, works for the Panthers. Honestly, him and Chris Neal should just have one more go. I'm pretty sure they fought more than anyone else in Neal's career. I think they fought 6 times, if I'm not mistaken, between Florida and the Bruins. Yeah. So, you know what? Get the fans hyped up. Give them what they want. But all jokes aside, that is a great locked-on player, the captain of this team. I'll give you 2. One, I already mentioned, Tim Stützle. This has to be a big game for Tim Stützle. And you know who else? Drake Batherson. I think Drake Batherson is going to have a monster year, and it all starts tonight. So Drake Batherson is going to be one for me. I think that he brings a little bit more of that skill, finesse, but I want to see him take a little Travis Green page out of his book, the hard, heavy hockey. I think he's got a lot of potential still to reach in his career. He's right in the prime. He's got his family in town, his sister's here. So I got Drake Batherson as a player to watch.
I like it. Yeah. And that second line is going to be very interesting. We know what the first line can do. We're excited about the third line going up against other teams' bottom 6, or maybe not. We'll get to that later. But that second line is going to be very pivotal. Pivotal. Word of the day.
Give me a line.
The second line is going to be very pivotal. There we go. Because they're going to have to provide some offense, which they can do. Josh Norris, Drake Batherson. But you got a little jam in that lineup, too, with the NHL's, or at least the Atlantic Division's favorite pest, Ridley Gregg.
I'm excited to see this decor as well, because on paper it's more balanced, but is it better? That's the question. Is it better? We're going to be watching Nick Jensen, Travis Hamonic, the right side of the decor. How will it look? It looks like Zach McEwen and Jacob Bernard-Docker are the extras for this game. Look, Travis Hamonic, he'll tell you, he did a media a couple days ago. And I always say, I've got time to listen to that guy talk hockey anytime. I think he's very insightful and very open and honest with how he approaches those media scrums. So he was very critical of himself, and he wasn't going to make any excuses. Claire had to ask him, hey, you got surgery? He's like, just because you asked? Yeah, I did. But I think that he's going to have a bit of a revenge tour this year. He's not going to be the best player on the ice, but I don't think that he's going to hurt the team the way he did last year. So he needs to be a stabilizer, because Clevin, I think, needs to have a guy who he can trust in certain situations, especially in the defensive end.
Well, and Ross, the prophecy has been completed here. Travis Hamonic, originally, the whole idea for him, acquiring him, was to be a mentor for an eventual NHL defenseman, Tyler Clevin. So
people laughed at us.
Here they are on a pair. And look, as long as Hamonic is playing locked on a third pair role, and like you mentioned, he's got a chip on his shoulder. He's got something to prove. I don't think it's going to be as big of a deal as most people think, but also I do want to see JBD get in the mix a little bit here. This is his kind of final year to be like, what do we got from JBD?
And maybe we'll find out on Saturday, but not tonight. Looks like he will be out. And Linus Ullmark starts in goal for the Boston Bruins in the regular season against the Florida Panthers. He's 12-3-1 in 16 games. How's that for finding a stat? with a .929 save percentage. Now, don't ask me what his playoff numbers are against the Florida Panthers, but in the regular season, Linus Ullmark is 12-3-1 all time against the Panthers.
That worked out really well, Ross. I saw what you were doing here. I saw you go to Linus Ullmark and his game logs and the splits, and I was like, this could be very bad looking up against his numbers against the Panthers, but that worked out great. I am excited that we have Linus Ullmark.
I love that. I see what you did there. Now, let's quickly ask. The Florida Panthers have a top six that we'll get to, but you can really order whichever way. Matthew Tkachuk on one line, Sasha Barkov on the other, different positions, but that's who's the driver on each line. Who do you match up against Barkov in tonight's game?
So we talked about this. I mean, he's one of the best centermen in the league. So
he might be, top five.
He's no longer that sneaky, underrated guy. Like
if people say he's underrated, I'll call them a casual, because if you've been watching, you know he's unbelievable.
Or you're just saying he's underrated because in years past you heard people say he's underrated. You haven't caught on yet. So it's very hard to match up against a guy like that, especially with his size, his defensive ability, everything. So I don't think Timmy is a good matchup against Barkov. I'm not quite sure Norris is a good matchup against Barkov, but I was kind of thinking, what if they match that third line up against Florida's top line, try to shut them down, try to piss them off. David Perron's going to have to do a lot of work there. And then that way you can have other lines match up a little bit better. I think match the 2 second lines up against each other. I think Ridley Gregg can even out Sam Bennett's antics.
Him and Matthew Tkachuk will be going if that's the case.
Yeah, so that'll be
left wing, right wing.
And then if you can match that first line of Tkachuk, Stützle, and Giroux up against a young Florida Panthers third line, and I'm not throwing any shade on them. That's still a great third line. But if you can match it up like that and you think you can have success, I think that could be a way that the Ottawa Senators could attack this team.
We will look at the Florida Panthers lines next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Gametime. You guys know Gametime is the official ticketing app of the Locked On Podcast Network. And if you're hearing this and you don't have tickets for the home opener, which is in about 8 hours, what are you doing? Get going. Luckily, you have Gametime, where you can get tickets for all your favorite sports, concerts, comedy, and theater. It's going to be an amazing night at the CTC. You don't want to miss, and you don't have to miss, because Gametime makes getting tickets so much easier. Check out their all-in pricing. Nothing worse, Ross, when you think you're getting the deal, you get to check out and there's an extra $15 in taxes, fees, all these stuff. Not with Gametime. Make sure you turn on the all-in pricing feature, and you're going to see what it's going to cost right from the hop. Get your panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. The lowest price guarantee. If you find a lower price, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. That is the way Gametime works. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL. You're getting yourself $20 off. What time is it?
Gametime.
Gametime.
All right, Pillsy, you want to let everyone know, too, we are going to be at Farm to Fork at 12:30 on Friday. We're going to go check out their new store. It's on Carling, right by the Diamond Storage. We are very excited to go see that. So if you're around, hey, come check it out and come say hi. We'll be there from about 12:30 to 1:30 on Friday. So, Pillsy, we will either be feeling great or feeling good, because this is not a must-win game. Florida Panthers already 1-0 this season. They had a phenomenal playoffs. They get the Stanley Cup. They raised the banner in their first game of the season. And they are coming back, as you mentioned, a bit of a different look, but still a talented team, and one that there's no way the Senators can, in any world, take lightly. Not that I think they would. Here's how they line up. Alexander Barkov's their top line center between Carter Verhaeghe and Sam Reinhart. Their second line is Sam Bennett between Evan Rodriguez and Matthew Tkachuk. Anton Lundell between Eetu Luostarinen and Maki Samaskevich. And the fourth line, Jesper Bokvist between Jonah Gadjevich and AJ Greer. On the back end, Gustav Forsling with Aaron Ekblad, Nico Mikola with Dmitry Kulikov, and we've got Balinskis with Adam Bachvist, we think. Bachvist, of course, took that shot in the face, missed the rest of the first game. He was reevaluated. Paul Maurice says he will be a day-to-day game time decision. Got to think it's Sergei Bobrovsky in goal, but if not, hashtag Sens abroad. Former Senators draft pick Chris Drieger. Who is your lookout player to watch?
Well, Ross, I'm going to keep this simple. My locked-on player, Brady Tkachuk. My lookout player, Matthew Tkachuk.
Are they related?
They are brothers. I mean, obviously, Barkov is a guy that you got to watch for. Your Verhaeghes, your Bennett's, your Reinhardt's, a lot of talent. But just the way that Matthew Tkachuk plays the game in Tkachuk style, he's someone you always need to be aware of because he's so sneaky too. And he's a guy that's going to get under your skin. So I want Ridley Gregg throwing some of that back in Matthew Tkachuk's face, but you got to watch out for Matthew Tkachuk.
You always have to be aware when he's on the ice. That whole line, Sam Bennett is Bennett the Menace, I think they're calling him. He is what I hope Ridley Gregg will be one day. Just get under your skin, and then all of a sudden, 1 year, pop off for 29 goals. Why not? So I think that's a great call there. I'm going to go with Carter Verhaeghe. Just signed a new 8-year contract extension for $7 million per season, and it's well earned. Like, if you think about the last 2 years, he went 42 goals and then 38, I think, or 37 last year. Like, I asked Mike DiStefano, we did Locked On NHL yesterday, like, could he be on Team Canada's radar at the Four Nations? Like, he might not make the team, but even the fact that this former, I think, 6th-round pick of the Leafs, of course, thanks for trading him, for him to even be in the mix for that, I think is incredible. 73 and 72 points the last 2 years.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that, but it's not that crazy, Ross.
He is a very talented player, so I'm going to be looking out for him. He's the type of guy that can change a game just with one swing of his stick where he's able to make plays, and he's a guy who I'm going to be looking out for among all the bigger names, Barkov, Reinhardt, and those guys. I think Verhaeghe, he stirs the pot on that top line too, so I'll be watching out for him. And on the back end, Gustav Forsling. Like, he should be the most underrated player in the league at this point. Of course, the Stanley Cup might demean that a little bit in terms of being underrated, but he is an absolute star, and he's playing top pair minutes now, no questions asked. So I'll be looking out for those players, and we've got a great game ahead of us. As we mentioned off the top, the Ottawa Senators have struggled in the past against the Florida Panthers. They got beat down multiple times last season. What's the one key to victory?
And you already kind of mentioned it, Ross. You got to play your game. What Florida does
so look in the mirror game.
Sure. What Florida does so well is trick you into playing their style, and no one plays their style better than them, right? Like, they're going to agitate you. After the whistle, they're not just going to skate away, or as you like to say, Ross, look on the ground for pennies. They're going to be making sure that they're in your face, that they're pissing off your goalie. So keep Allmark protected. He just signed a big new extension. Make him feel like you're going to keep him safe.
12-3-1 against the Panthers.
And I just think that if they can get off to the hop early and have this crowd behind them, that's going to be huge. So I want to see a big first period from the Sens, both physically and offensively.
7 o'clock puck drop. We'll have a postcast style video for you later. We got these little microphones, so we'll do a video at the rink right after the game. But of course, when we're boots on the ground, it's a little bit different. Pillsy, I can't believe we've gotten 29 minutes into this show, and we have yet to brag about our boots on the ground record.
Yeah, true. Good call. Which are we going with, the worldwide record or our Canada record?
Well, we'll start worldwide. Our all-time record is 14-1-1,
Not bad.
including the last one where they almost lost to Montreal. But we had our ladies there. They gave us a little magic touch.
And Cole Caulfield forgot the puck on a shootout.
You said it. Sens tie it late and then win in the shootout there.
Beautiful.
So that's the last game we went to. The game before that was a loss, okay? We were 13-0-1 at one point. But we're back. 14-1-1. We're 14-0-1 in Canada.
And dare I mention our home opener record?
3-0.
3-0, baby. So
okay.
I'm feeling good. Obviously, a little nervous that it's the Florida Panthers. You can't knock that down, but
it's not Philly like last year.
Exactly. Yeah. Fresh off a new Linus Allmark extension. The vibes are good. It's there's nothing like the Sens Home Opener. So I'm so fired up.
Boy,
I am excited.
Boy, I am excited. Pillsy, any final thoughts on today's show?
Well, it is the Ottawa Senators Home Opener, but the Belleville Senators start their season next year. And Ross, I'll let you
Next
read
year?
or tomorrow. I'll let you read off their newly minted leadership.
Yeah, because you had Garrett Peelsy as the captain. We knew that yesterday. Great video, by the way. I like the behind the scenes where they showed Ryan Bonus presenting him with that great speech. Peelsy, way to go.
Yep.
The associate. Do we call them associates now after Utah changed the game there?
I don't know, maybe, yeah.
We've got 4 alternate captains for the Belleville Sens this year. And I'm a little surprised at one. I'll tell you why in a second.
Okay.
Donovan Sabrango, Max Gannett, Jeremy Davies, and Zach Ostapchuk will be the alternate captains.
So which one surprised you?
They snubbed someone. Why is there no letter on Angus Crookshank's jersey?
Crooker.
Like Crooker
That's a
posted
good question.
it to his story, and I almost said congrats before I even looked at the friggin' 4 people.
No, you're right. That is surprising.
It's extremely surprising. He's
Yeah.
a dog, and he plays the game the way that you'd want. He's a leader. I'm surprised.
And he's been there. He's been through it all in Belleville.
We need to get an A for Angus on his jersey. So
Hey, no disrespect to these guys, though. All well deserving.
Totally agree. And I think Jeremy Davies could be in the mix for one of the best defensemen in the AHL this year. That's just my hot take. If we're looking at the American Hockey League tonight, we're looking at the Ottawa Senators taking on the Florida Panthers. 7:00 puck drop at the CTC. We'll be in and around Section 321. How's that?
Yeah, that's
We'll
fair.
be in and around Section 321. Look forward to seeing everybody at the game. We'll break it down after. We'll break it down tomorrow. We'll also look ahead to a weekend game in Montreal where we will be there, and we will let you know where we'll be before the game on tomorrow's show. We'd love to have a little Sens Army meetup before the game. For today, we say goodbye. Thank you for watching, listening, engaging with the show. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been another edition of the Locked On Senators podcast. Your team every day.